The next 10-15 minutes might cost me my US visa, but here we go. Imagine a high stakes poker game where one player doesn't just raise the stakes, they flip the table, they shout out demands, they throw tantrums, and then casually offer you a round of drinks and a private jet. That, in essence, is the Donald Trump negotiation playbook on the global stage. So, how does he do it? How does he bring all these countries to their knees, or rather, in this case, to the negotiation table on his terms? Well, it's a four-step strategy honed over decades, and it's less about diplomacy and more about sheer unadulterated pressure. First up, he anchors with extreme offers.
A 104% tariff. Tariff on of approximately 100%.
It's going to go to 150%, and then it's going to go to 250%.
Think of it as throwing a number so outrageous that anything less seems reasonable. In his own words, from The Art of the Deal, he recounts a negotiation for a jet. He says, I offered $5 million, which is obviously ridiculously low. They countered at $10 million, and at that point, I knew I had a great deal, regardless of how the negotiation ended. He's not afraid to suggest even the most outlandish things, like using the US military force to protect US trade interests with Greenland of all places. This tactic is all about intimidating the opponent and giving himself maximum room to maneuver. Next, he takes the negotiation public. Trump loves to air grievances on social media, in rallies, in public press conferences.
I think Iran's been very nasty with their words, with their mouth. Still not paying what they should be paying and what they are supposed to be paying for their defense. Brazil has been a horrible trading partner in terms of tariffs. Russia, I think it's disgusting what they're doing.
Throwing big public accusations towards his opponents. Remember this Truth Social post where he publicly declared that China was totally violating the interim agreements? This wasn't just a normal social media statement, it was a calculated move on his part to frame China or publicly frame China as untrustworthy and justify further escalations. Or consider NATO, he repeatedly called them out for not paying enough for their defense. Remember this?
NATO is broke. Then I said, you're going to have to pay, and we did a whole thing, and now they're paying a lot. Then I said, you're going to have to lift it to 4% or 5%, and 5% is better.
He even went as far as to suggest that he would encourage Russia to do whatever the hell it wants to the members not meeting the military spending targets. This kind of public shaming creates immense pressure and forces countries to react not just to him but to global opinion as well. And then comes the relentless carrot and stick approach. It's a constant barrage of penalties interspersed with just enough incentive to keep the other side from walking away. Look at the US-China trade war. It started with tariffs on solar panels and washing machines, then escalated to steel and aluminum. Then when China retaliated, Trump didn't back down. Instead, he threatened another $100 billion in tariffs. And the tit-for-tat continued with tariffs briefly hitting the triple-digit levels. And he wasn't just slapping tariffs. He was restricting tech exports for jet engines, for semiconductors, and he even announced plans to aggressively revoke visas of Chinese students who have been found to have ties with the Communist Party. And amidst all these stakes, there were small little carrots thrown in here and there. And the result? A partial agreement was reached in May 2025. Both the sides agreed to lower some tariffs, though a 10% baseline remained. And interestingly, China committed to take aggressive actions to stem the flow of fentanyl to North America. It's a masterclass in always keeping your opponents off balance and always making them feel pressure to concede. And finally, he imposes arbitrary and often unrealistic timelines. And they aren't just random dates on the calendar, they're pressure points specifically designed to force quick decisions. Remember the infamous Liberation Day announcement on April 2nd, 2025? He threatened import taxes of up to 50% on nearly 60 countries, including the European Union, with an initial deadline of April 9th. This deadline was later pushed to July 9th and then to August 1st. But imagine all the major countries of the world scrambling to Washington to negotiate a deal for themselves. And that too in just a week, then 3 months, then another month. Remember this declaration on Truth Social about the August 1st timelines? The threat of deadlines, even when they're flexible, is a real weapon, compelling countries to make deals to avoid worse outcomes. And for many, this playbook worked. Countries scrambled to avoid the worst. The European Union, initially threatened with a 30% rate, managed to secure a deal at a 15% baseline rate. The UK reached a formal agreement by July 31, accepting a 10% baseline rate. South Korea saw its 25% threatened rate reduced down to 15%. Even Pakistan negotiated down to 19%. These nations, along with many others, ultimately made deals on Trump's terms, often accepting rates that were higher than what they had before Trump's presidency, just to avoid even more punitive measures. It became a race to the bottom, where securing any deal, even an unfavorable one, became the priority. But here's where the script takes a different turn: India. Donald Trump used the same playbook on India as well, but he found a different kind of resistance. Just like with the other nations, Trump applied his extreme anchoring on India. As part of his Liberation Day order, he announced a 26% tariff on India. And later, when India failed to reach a good enough for him deal by his deadlines, he announced a 25% tariff on all imports from India effective August 1st. Then came the public slamming. The public pressure campaign was intense. Remember this Truth Social post? Trump dismissed India's economy as dead and claimed it had amongst the highest tariffs in the world. This was widely seen as a tactic to extract concessions from India. He then also expressed publicly his displeasure on the BRICS grouping, which includes India, and apparently this group is trying to undermine the dollar, and he also threatened a 100% tariff if such efforts continue.
So BRICS, they have BRICS, which is basically a group of countries that are anti the United States, and India is a member of that, if you can believe it. It's an attack on the dollar, and we're not going to let anybody attack the dollar. So it's partially BRICS, and it's partially the trade situation.
The stakes came thick and fast. An additional 25% tariff because India continues to buy Russian oil, indirect pressure on US companies like Apple to not manufacture in India.
A little problem with Tim Cook yesterday. I said to him, Tim, you're my friend. I treated you very good. You're coming in with $500 billion, but now I hear you're building all over India. I don't want you building in India.
The US Department of Commerce started probes into Section 232 provisions on pharmaceuticals, electronics, semiconductors, and these are major parts of India's exports to the US. So these investigations were signaling a threat of potential future tariffs. Then Trump announced a new trade agreement with Pakistan to jointly develop its oil reserves, while mockingly stating, who knows, maybe they'll sell oil to India someday. This pivot to Pakistan was widely regarded as a carrot and stick approach to extract concessions from India. Amidst all of these sticks, he also threw in a carrot in the form of sale of F-35 stealth fighter jets to India, which he had personally offered back during Prime Minister Modi's visit in February. And finally, like the rest of the world, there were arbitrary deadlines as well. The July 9th or August 1st deadline for trade deals, or the August 7th deadline for sanctions on Russian oil imports. All this to create a sense of urgency for India to either sign a deal with US or curtail its Russian oil imports, or else. But India so far hasn't given in. India is ready to sign a deal, but not on Trump's terms. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal explicitly stated that India will not be rushed by deadlines. India successfully navigated the July 9 deadline set by Trump without receiving a tariff letter, showcasing a diplomatic finesse. India has been unequivocally firm that agriculture and dairy are not going to be part of any trade deals. This stance is consistent across all its trade agreements. This is driven by a paramount concern for its farmers, national food security concerns, and deeply held religious beliefs relating to dairy. Despite Trump's threats of substantially raising tariffs or adding additional penalties, India hasn't stopped purchasing oil from Russia. Indian officials have consistently stated that we are solely going by what's best for our consumers and opting for the best option cost-wise. If Russian crude is cheaper than anywhere else, why should we penalize our consumers? India's Ministry of External Affairs deemed this targeting unjustified and unreasonable, and affirmed the nation's commitment to safeguarding its national interest and economic security. And so India continues to import about 1.7 million barrels per day of Russian crude. And furthermore, India is continually pursuing actions to reduce its vulnerability to US tariff actions. While the US still remains India's largest export destination, India has significantly diversified its export markets. The Indian government is also exploring increasing imports of American goods like natural gas or communication equipment to reduce our trade surplus with US. And about the F-35 carrot? Well, India rejected it in favor of co-development and co-production under the Make in India initiative. An economic analysis conducted by SBI Research suggests that the 25% tariff imposed by US on Indian goods might have more significant impacts on the US economy rather than the Indian economy. India's robust economic growth, its diversified export markets, and a large domestic consumer base provides a significant buffer against US tariff actions. So, what do you think? Can India remain standing strong? And can we get a deal which is balanced for both the nations instead of being forced into one which is favoring the US only? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you appreciated the video, please press the like button and subscribe the next big thing for more.